So this morning we have come down to the center of San Salvador as we are meeting a guide to do a walking tour. So we're just meeting at the just outside the hospital, which is behind me, and we're about 10 minutes early, so hopefully he's here soon.
So this morning we are on our walking tour with our lovely guide. So before we start, I think we should introduce ourselves. So hi, my name's Marion and I'm from Tread the Globe.
I'm Chris from Tread the Globe.
I'm Stephanie Hernandez from Easy Tours, San Salvador City.
I'm Evan from mainland China, Beijing.
Ah, awesome.
Amazing! What a fab group we're going to have today. First, fun fact, the Salvadorian flag is blue, white, blue. Blue for the sky, white for the peace, and blue from the colour indigo. More facts on indigo coming soon.
So when you think of Central America, often you get the impression that it can be a little bit dangerous. But today we're in San Salvador and we're going to be showing you that actually it's a really great place to visit on this walking tour. Historically, San Salvador has had quite a rocky past. They had a civil war that only ended in 1992. It started in 1964. So it takes time for these sort of things to calm down. But walking around the city, you get a real feel of the Central American hustle and bustle and markets, and I'm really looking forward to this walk around today. So the national dish of San Salvador is the pupusa, and you can see it being made behind me. And they sell them with like beans and cheese inside, almost like a tortilla. And you can find them all over El Salvador.
So on the tour, we've actually dropped into the Anthropology Museum.
So what's amazing is that El Salvador, back in the day, and I don't know the year, when the volcano erupted and caused devastation, all the indigenous people fled south from El Salvador, and the country was uninhabited for nearly 200 years. But then as the Aztec people, they moved south, they came across El Salvador and decided to settle and start building, and hence the fact there's so many temples in El Salvador, and many still to be discovered, correct?
Exactly.
There you go. I've been listening to my tour guide today. Good job! So behind me is a representation of the three main products that they produce here in El Salvador. So we have coffee, indigo and cacao. And what's interesting is that up until the 1700s, indigo was the main product that they produced here. But then in Asia they discovered how to make artificial indigo, and so the business, the trade here in El Salvador dropped, and they started producing and exporting coffee instead. So the fun fact is that here in El Salvador, they produce more chocolate than any other country here in Central America, but they don't export any, so they're all definite chocolate lovers. So you have to try a hot chocolate, which we're going to do later when you're here in El Salvador.
So we are outside the Basilica of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in downtown San Salvador. Fun fact, the whole of the external part of this building was actually made in Belgium, except for a few bits of wood that came from Indonesia, and the tiles were from Italy. And so it was actually shipped in piece by piece because the country had a really good working relationship due to the coffee exportation with these countries. Amazing. Fun Fun fact number 2 about the Basilica, it's actually the youngest church in the entire of San Salvador, and it's only 127 years old. Ooh. Fun fact number 3, the stone behind me on this building is actually metal. Come and look at this.
It's all metal sheeting, all of it. It's the first church I've ever seen made out of metal. I've seen one made out of bricks, I've seen one made out of stone, but I've never seen one made out of metal before.
I've just noticed the doors are made of wood. So this is the wood that's been shipped in from Indonesia. Learning more about the history of San Salvador and the rocky journey that they struggle with, the volcanoes and the volcanic activity, that is why this church is made out of metal and wood. But in 2001, they actually had a massive earthquake that was life-threatening. Many people died, and even this church was slightly structurally damaged. So that's why you can see behind me there are actually reinforcing beams that are here, pillars of reinforced metal to support the roof and the building. But they live with it daily. Apparently you can feel tremors every day, and there is actually an earthquake every week here.
Now we're heading off to the market. It's an informal market that covers over 27 blocks here in San Salvador, and it's in between where we are now, and we're heading through the market towards the cathedral.
We're just strolling through the informal market, and it's amazing. You can literally get anything you could ever dream of. It's like clothing central with lots of little shops with food and nice treats and bits to eat. Spices, electronic stuff. It's just literally got everything you could want. And it's really friendly. Everyone's really smiley and happy.
So all the way down the market stall behind us, you can see all these tubs of drinks and stuff that they've got for sale here. Absolutely beautiful, only 25 cents for a bag that looks a little bit like that. A little bit like that. Here you go, this is what you get a bag, 25 cents if you want to cool off as you're walking around the market. So we have come down through the market and we've arrived at a square next to the cathedral called Hernando Barrios Square. There you go. And he is one of the ex-presidents of El Salvador, and there's actually a monument of him here in the square. And what's interesting is that this square used to be full of market stalls, but they recently moved them into the side streets to make this area a pedestrianized area for everybody to use. Okay, so I'm trying the pupusas that we bought earlier from the stand. One word of advice: when you buy them, they're super hot, so don't bite into them straight away, but I'm going to give this a go. That's really nice, actually. It's got like beans and cheese, I think.
That is the rice tortilla.
Oh, and it's a rice tortilla.
That's why it's white.
And you can see that, that's why it's white. Oh, really good. 25 cents is a very cheap snack.
So behind us is the National Palace that is actually now used as a museum. And when the Civil War ended 22 years ago, the peace treaty was signed right here. behind me is called La Dalia, and it is actually the first casino ever in Central America.
So behind me here, the Iglesia El Rosario is the #1 place to visit in downtown San Salvador. And it's a really unusual church, and you'll see why it's unusual when we go inside.
So we are in the Church of El Rosario, and what is absolutely fascinating is that when it was being conceived as an idea, the architect actually went to the Catholic leaders in San Salvador, gave and proposed his idea, and it was denied because it's not a traditional church with pillars. It's in fact a long structure with an arch at either end. So the sun will rise in the east and it will go down in the west. And then on one side of the building, you can actually see the eye of God in the wall, which is made of mosaic glasses. So when it was actually denied, he decided not to just give up. He actually travelled to Italy, to Rome, to see the Pope. And the Pope gave him permission, so he was able to come back to the leaders in San Salvador and say, boom, I've got permission. Who is soon to become the Prime Minister, the President of El Salvador, actually did a massive renovation project in the last 3 years of being the mayor. So behind me is what the streets would have looked like before, and now they've been renovated. They look something like this. And he takes over to become president on June the 3rd, and the people that we spoke to are incredibly hopeful for the future of El Salvador because he's a young, vigorous, ambitious man. So good luck to El Salvador. Behind me is the National Theatre, another example of the beautiful, stunning architecture in San Salvador. This is just another example of the work that the president has done, or the future president has done, to create a more modern, clean line city that will welcome tourists and effectively more business to the area. So on the road in front of me there is actually a mark on the floor. It's a tiled area to depict the central place of San Salvador. It is ground zero of San Salvador, the central point. And as soon as all these cars move out the way, I'm gonna go and jump on it. I'm on it. So we are stood outside the Metropolitan Cathedral, and it's actually the 3rd cathedral to have been built in exactly the same spot. And that is actually a direct representation of how the country has been affected by the earthquakes. They just have to keep rebuilding. So there are pictures just on the right hand side of the altars of a gentleman called Oscar Romero, and he has actually just been canonized because he was the priest during the Civil War that stood up and wrote to the guerrillas and the government alike, asking them to stop in the name of God the war. And they actually decided to assassinate him. So he was shot during one of the mass services. Last year, members of the Vatican actually came over and they canonized him. So he is now saint. So how lovely is that he was recognised for all the work he did trying to help the people during the difficult times of the Civil War.
For those of you that have been watching us for a while, you know we love coffee, and so we couldn't resist at the end of this tour sampling a local coffee. And this particular bean is a mixed bean, only found in El Salvador, which is supposed to taste slightly like a bit of chocolate. And part of the reason is, one, because of the mixed bean, and two, because of the volcanic rock that it's, the volcanic soil that it's grown in. So we're going to give this a go because it looks absolutely delicious. It's very smooth. It's a really, really smooth coffee. You're going to love this.
I don't know why, but I love hot chocolate cold. Does that make me weird? Anyway, so here's to a beautiful hot chocolate cold.
Good?
That is really good. That tastes like the real chocolate bean that I had. Like, it's bang. It's good. That is good. That, not sharing.
There's obviously a reason why El Salvador doesn't export its chocolate, and that's one of them. So we have had a fab morning with Stephanie here from EC Tours, who has given us a walking tour around the city here in San Salvador downtown. And if you do want to see a city, a really good way is to pick up the free walking tours. The walking tour with EC Tours is actually free of charge, and then it's tip based. So depending on how good you think the tour guide is how much you tip them.
And she was amazing.
So she's going to go and buy a new car this afternoon. And you know, if you visit a country or a city where you're nervous because of reputation or anything like that, obviously going around with the local is the best way to do it. And yeah, we love San Salvador.
So we've just left our lovely guide Stephanie, and we're just going for a walk through the market to see if we can find some lunch, because it's that time of the day. Price of $8.20. We are living the food dream. And if he gets it wrong, make sure you slap him.
Okay.
All the doors are made of wood, so these must be the wood, beats of wood, cut.
Okay, so the name of the square is
Something I cannot pronounce.
Hang on 1 second. Okay.
my brain. I don't know whether
not
I'm
much.
in the
I
square,
need
in
more
the
light.
market, or I'm eating pupusas.
Okay,
What am I doing?
let's get there.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've come down through the market and we have arrived at the square called Fernando Barrias Geraldo. Cut. Okay. Building. It's a museum, and she's in the bloopers. Is it on?
Sweet
Come
cheese.
over here. She's misbehaving.
I'm not very good at history, and this lot are all pretending as well.
She's being very naughty.
Very naughty. Okay, so cut.
But it is actually. It was. No, hold on. Cut.
Baby, you need that t-shirt. It says she's my weirdo. There is a little tiny roundabout / mark on the floor, which means it's ground zero of El Salvador. It is exactly the central point of El Salvador.
San Salvador.
San Salvador, cut.
She got the hot chocolate. She drank it already.
Yeah, I already finished it.
I don't think she liked the hot chocolate.
I like it very much.
It's all gone.
Not anymore.
And just last year when the Pope, what exactly happened again? I can't remember.